let's start. Stacy, I'll pick on you early here to talk through. So resetting, we're talking about religious organizations using Razor's Edge. What are they doing with automation? What is the cool stuff that can raise you more money, streamline, et cetera, et cetera. I want to start and talk about structurally what's going on. So I'm going to speak here to Catholic dioceses. I think about 2/3 of the attendees today are Catholic dioceses. And then again, we have some Catholic charities, we have some Jewish organizations, we have some other religious, general Christian organizations. First, I'm going to talk about dioceses just because I think it kind of sets the tone for what we're dealing with. This is the average donor to a diocese in the United States. Here is sort of the journey. And I'm going to go through this fast because you get the point. But so let's just talk through the life journey of this couple here, right? Let's say they're from Omaha. So they got married and they joined a parish here in Omaha, St. Leo's. And then they donated to the diocesan annual appeal. Then they moved across town to another parish. And then they had a kid. And then they had another kid. And then they attended an event. And then they had a third kid. And then maybe the kids go to high school. Husband starts a new business. They end up signing up for a diocesan newsletter. They give to a diocesan capital campaign. They go to another special event. Kids go to a Catholic high school now from a grade school. They join the Bishop's Circle, which is a really big deal in a lot of religious organizations, that giving society. Maybe they served on a finance committee. They sold the business. They bought a second home. They gave to a capital campaign. Husband passes away. Wife moves in with the daughter, on and on. Those are a normal milestone moment. So we could go even deeper, right? There's probably 30 more things we could put in there. But in the life cycle of a typical donor in our world of religious nonprofits, these are the milestones that happen. And the first thing that we notice when we're talking about automations for religious organizations is that many times each one of those milestones is recorded in a separate database, right? What we would call a data silo. So when they joined the first parish, that might have been St. Leo's, and they have some software. Maybe they have ParishSoft. Then when they move to Christ the King, they use eCatholic. Okay? The school is using a spreadsheet. The diocese is using Razor's Edge and Flocknote and maybe Free Will, right, to handle the plan giving stuff. The kids go to Creighton Prep, which is on a different Razor's Edge environment. The diocese special events, they use BidPal or One Cause or something. Eventually, when they move down to Arizona, they're at a whole different parish. This is the first thing we get asked about when a diocese calls and says, hey, I heard about automation. Can you help me with this problem right here? Different silos of information. So Stacy, I'm going to ask you to walk us through how this typically works, what automation can do. Is that fair? Is that okay? All right. Nightmare scenario. Everything we just described is kind of the nightmare scenario. But let's say you're a database administrator at a diocese, like I see 30 on the call here today, database administrators for diocese. You have Razor's Edge, your parishes are on something, and they're sending you rosters to try and keep Razor's Edge up to date. And Stacy, how do those usually arrive in this nightmare scenario?
So back in the day when I was doing this in the Archdiocese of KCK, we had people sending in pieces of paper with notes handwritten on them. We had people that would email us every couple of days. We'd have people that would send us something once a year. We had people that would call. They would literally pick up the phone and say, hey, Susie Q, no longer goes to the parish or needs to receive the newsletter or whatever it is, right? So all the things, every possible.
Which is time consuming, but you understand, parishes are doing the best they can, but
yep.
Time consuming, always feels like it can be optimized. So let's talk about how automation can help. And there's a whole bunch of dioceses doing stuff like this. Stacy, what is the magic lookup folder? What are we talking about?
So this is the thing that I think blew my mind the most. So we can have a computer look up people in Razor's Edge for you, right? So when you get some outside data source, if they happen to send it to you in a spreadsheet, you could just import it into Razor's Edge, right? But it doesn't have the ID number, so you can't do that, right? So basically, you have to spend your entire life looking up all these people that are in Razor's Edge to find their ID numbers, and then you can make the edits, or then you can add the IDs to the spreadsheet. The Magic Lookup folder takes the spreadsheet and it looks the people up in Razor's Edge for you. And then it spits out different files based on what it is that you need. So if there's no matches, which is rare, especially in a Catholic diocese situation, there's not, people more often move from parish to parish than they do appear out of nowhere, not in your database, right? So we can make you a file of people that are not in Razor's Edge. You need to import these people. We can make you a file of, we think this is the only person like this in Razor's Edge. You can probably go ahead and import their new email addresses that you just got in that file. And we can make a file that has multiple matches. So we said we found, 3 Stacy Copes. We're not sure which one is the right one. So then you review those. So it takes your time from, manual lookups and manual input for hours and hours and hours and hours and days and days and days to, mostly kind of streamlined and automated. You spend a couple hours on them, and then you have these last few kind of weird ones that you have to review. So it just cuts your time sitting there typing into Razor's Edge down A lot. It's amazing.
The kind of thing you wish you had had when we were all doing this as DBAs, right? And is it really, it's a dumb question. Is it really just a folder? It's like sitting on your, if again, sticking with the example of a diocese, you're at a diocese, you have SharePoint, you get a spreadsheet from St. Mary's, you literally just drag that spreadsheet into a folder on SharePoint. And it then goes, even if it doesn't have IDs on it from Razor's Edge, you drop it spreadsheet in whatever format, you drop it into the folder, it goes, digs inside a Razor's Edge, looks for matches, and then gives them to you as in like, here's the definite matches, here's probable matches, here's the ones you're gonna have to enter by hand. And I know now why everybody is calling and asking about this. This is okay, so that's a big deal.
On the old way.
Well, a million times better than the old way. What about you guys have taken it even farther, right? So tell me about this matching tile thing and tell me what I'm looking at and then kind of where this is going. And we're doing this, I think, for like Greensburg and maybe a couple others that are this advanced. So tell me what we're looking at.
This is brand new. So this is a similar situation. So we're looking things up in Razor's Edge from some sort of external data source. And then instead of spitting you out a bunch of files, we're putting everything back into Razor's Edge where you can see it and review it there. So basically you'll say, you know, we have all these records from this outside data source that you need to match up. We think Nick Prenger at St. Rita is probably one of these three guys. Which one is he? You know, you check the box. You can then say it's none of these, create the new record. And then we can actually add the IDs from both systems to the other ones, depending on what the third party system is. But we can add IDs so that people are now matched, right? So once you've done this, we can say, okay, I know this Nick Prenger over here is the same as this one. We put their IDs from the opposite systems into the other system so that we now know in the future, next time you have a new email address or a new phone number, we just know who you are and we don't have to ask you about it. We just can update the email.
That is wild. So for everybody that's on the call here, that is it's a niche audience, right? If you're a database administrator in a federated system, right, or in a system where Razor's Edge is constantly being updated by siloed other data sources, this is what your world increasingly looks like going forward, right? No more hunting and pecking, manually entering things, looking up duplicates. Either use a magic folder to do the first 80% of the work for you, or we build you a tile like this that lets you do it automatically. And every time you do it, depending on the software that you're getting the data from, you can potentially put that Razor's Edge ID back in the other software to make it seamless in the future. Awesome. Okay, super cool. So we're starting with that because that's, Menke, we get asked the most about that, right? Like if it's a religious organization, isn't it almost always starting with like this, like pulling data from other sources?
Always. And it's not, I mean, it's not just parishes, it's even internally, it's software that you use for events or for emails, for marketing, all sorts of things. So it's just, how do we save time, the time that we're constantly spending on cleaning up the data, making sure the right data goes in? This is the perfect solution for that.
If you've got a comms office that has a separate list that they mail the magazine out to, but it's not in Razor's Edge, but you have to keep Razor's Edge clean, you can just take that spreadsheet and bring it in. Okay, awesome. All right, if you have questions about this, and I saw we got a couple up there that we'll tackle. When you have questions, hit the Q&A button. It'll pop up on our screen. We're just going to run through a bunch of these case study examples, and then we're going to answer all the questions that you have and some that you don't have. Okay, so we're going to move on. So that's super cool. Everybody wants to know about that. We've covered it first and foremost. Hit us up with your questions. We're going to move on to another wonderful invention. Austin, I think I get to talk with you about this, right?
Yes.
Tax statements. Okay. Why were tax statements such a pain, and what can automation do to make it less of a pain?
Well, Razor's Edge only has a few options, and each of those has holes or downfalls, right? You can't include all the information you want. Some of them you can't change anything. It's just a pain. And a lot of times people want to control what they're including in tax statements or have it appear a certain way. And doing it through this method allows you to do that. So we're able to include gifts in a variety of different sort of formats. So here is a list of every single gift that someone got in a year. Or you could do a summary version where you summarize it by fund, campaign, appeal. However, your gift is coded in Razor's Edge. It's customized to you.
So you can create an automation that you can design like whatever you want it to look like with your logo and your organization stuff. And then you create an automation that when you want, you click a button and it goes and sucks up all the data and puts it into this format for all the people.
Yes. For the DBAs out there, no more manipulating data for 3 weeks in an Excel spreadsheet.
That's a really big deal. Can you put you on the spot? Can you email it out? I have a lot of CFOs that say, I am so mad about how much we spend on postage. Like people are giving it, it's 2025. Why can't we email things to people? Is it possible now to email a tax statement?
Yes.
I knew she was going to say yes there. I would have never asked that question if the answer was no. But you can do it, correct me if I'm wrong, you can do it as an attachment, as a PDF, right? But you could also do it in the body of the email.
Yes.
How would you, so let's say you're a large religious organization, you've got 100,000, I don't know, 10,000 donors, 100,000 records in there. How would you do this? Would you like run this automation first and like email it out and then just wait until people, if like somebody calls and wants a hard copy, then send a hard copy? Would you do both? Like, or do we have clients that do one or the other?
Yeah, there like lots of people have come up with wildly different ways to do this, but I recommend if someone has an email, save yourself the cost of postage and the putting this manually together, right? And send it via email. And if someone calls you later on and says, hey, I didn't get this, the best part is it's saved to the donor's record. So all you have to do is go into Razor's Edge, onto the constituent record, open that PDF, either mail it to send them another email or send it in the mail. Super easy.
Nick, I would say, can I jump in here quick? One of the things we've had some clients do, just from a variation standpoint, so obviously, Austin, I like your idea the best because it's the least expensive, right, to email everybody. Some organizations have said if a donor gives $5,000 or more a year or $10,000 or more a year, right? They're going to provide them both an electronic and a printed version. It allows it to be a little bit more personalized and kind of distinguishes, you're not sending a consolidated receipt or kind of your year-end tax letter to people who are giving $5, $10, maybe $20, $50 to the organization. But your top tier donors, maybe those in a giving society or whatever, they may qualify, or, at some point you might have a threshold where you want to send them a printed piece because you could provide additional, fluffy stuff, hugs and kisses, whatever, in addition to the letter that you're sending.
What about, so put you on the spot, Austin, what if you're an organization that says, I want to do this, I want to send a tax receipt out because I'm tired of doing all the manipulation and mailing everything else, but I want it to come from, we have major gift officers. So I have a person who manages a portfolio of 200 donors. Could you set it up so that each major gift officer sends the tax receipt to his or her people only? Is that possible?
We can route it to come from different people. We could route it by portfolio, or like Andy was saying before, like giving amounts. Like if you have a conditional thing that you want to send it out, gift amount, fund, what have you, we can do it that way too.
So you could do all the low-level gifts and one-time donors can come from a do not reply or accounts, whatever customer account at nonprofit, but all the big ones can come from the executive director.
We could even do it so that for those portfolio donors or there's major donors, it comes through as a drafted email so that the fundraiser could then add their own notes to the body of the message prior to.
Well, that's super cool. So it's not that nerve-wracking, like hit the button and then hope it's all right. Like just hit the button.
Not automatic is terrifying sometimes, but we get it right.
What about, so Rennie in Des Moines had a question here. Can it separate a donor advised fund, IRA from regular donations? Can it do all of that?
Yes, as long as that is coded somewhere on the record itself.
Awesome. Okay. So you're saying you have to have good data?
Yes. That's a part of this process, though, is we go in and we take a look at your data and we'll make recommendations on how you can track things better and streamline an overall process.
Yep. Got it. Okay. All right. I'm going to keep moving because I know we got tons of fun stuff, but keep those questions coming. We will, I know as people type in, we'll make sure to get to all of them. Okay. So we've talked about bringing in data from third parties and how automation can save you a ton of time. We've talked about tax letters. Let's talk about the most jazzy thing that we do. This is the fun stuff. Like this is an easier sell to not just the DBAs, but people that see it. Like, okay, so we've built, for folks on the call, scan this QR code. We built a live working model of my favorite automation, the thing that kind of made us famous here. Or you can even type it in, and if somebody wants to drop that into the chat for me, just easy.automategenius.com/faith. Go there, put in your first name, first name, last name, and your email address. And it is going to then absolutely send you the coolest thing ever. Okay, so you're going to go there. It's going to look like this. If the page doesn't look like that, then you are in the wrong spot. That's our friend Bill, who was at the Archdiocese of Kansas City, Kansas for a long time, and let us use him as a guinea pig for all of this fun automation work. So go to easy.automategenius.com or faith/faith, or just scan the QR code. You're going to fill in your name, first name, last name, work email, and then it's going to send you this. And I want you to actually fill it out because you're going to get this email. You're going to want to share it with other people in your office. So don't just look at it on the screen, actually go there and fill it out. You're going to then receive an email that looks exactly like this. Let's zoom in on it. Now, I want you to imagine, here's the use case that we're talking about. And this is probably in, I don't know, Andy, what, 20 or 30 dioceses are doing this right now?
For sure. Yep.
Okay. Plus a bunch of Catholic charities as well, and some of our other clients. But imagine you are a development director at Catholic Charities or a major gift officer for a Catholic diocese or any religious organization. You get this email every morning. And what you can do with this email, you'll see it's all fake information. We're not sharing actual client stuff here. But you can then get this email. You can get it on your phone, you can get it on your desktop, and you'll notice these little hyperlinks here, right? So Jane Klein, and it says there's a message prompt, Bishop Circle gift. So Jane Klein made a gift to the Bishop Circle. When you click on that link in the email that you just got, it is going to draft an email to Jane from you, thanking them for that specific thing. In this case, it was a gift to the member of the Bishop Circle. Now, take a moment and appreciate the magic that is happening here. This is not you going into Razor's Edge, trying to find out who made a gift that qualifies for the Bishop Circle, and then deciding to draft an email on your own or try and draft an email from NXT emailer thing. This is actually, all of it is happening on your own device. That's why I wanted you to fill out the code, because it happens on your smartphone from you using Gmail or Outlook or whatever it is that you've set as your default emailer. It drafts it for you. And now you can go in here, you can edit it. Maybe you just saw Jane at the grocery store yesterday and you add in, it was so great to see you at the grocery store yesterday. Maybe you don't know Jane. Maybe you know that Jane's husband just passed away or something that's like, I don't want to email her about this right now. All you do is you don't send the email. This is a huge deal. Andy, why am I overstating this? Like when Stacy first came up with this, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is going to change the world. Like,
you are not. I will tell you though, as a major gift officer, when you mentioned, imagine not having to go into Razor's Edge and like find out who gave the gift. Major gift officers never do that.
Yeah.
So the DBAs on the call are like, thank you for making my life easier, because it would be me going to somebody saying, hey, I need a report of all the gifts that were, this week. Then I get that report after the person poo-poos me away. And then I have to go in and manually type those. So like the idea where it's serving it up to you and not just like, hey, you need to like contact this person, but here's why you need to contact this person is like life altering for me as a gift officer. And I think about how much time could have been saved and how many more donors I could have reached out to in that same amount of time, right? By having something like this. So yeah, it's wild. We do get questions, and I think that this is an important piece of this as you're thinking about this and how potentially you could implement it, right? So with the samples here, it's entirely possible that Jane Klein, who is a Bishop Circle gift, also it's her 10th gift, or it's an increased gift, or those sorts of things, right? And so we can set it up to either prioritize things. So if you want the Bishop Circle to be kind of the most prevalent thing, Jane Klein shows up as Bishop Circle, but Jane Klein could actually be on 3 lines in a row as Bishop Circle 10th gift and increased gift, if that's how you want it displayed, so that when you click on it, it's going to have that primary message that Nick showed you. But you may also then be able to reference in a PS or however you want to maybe manipulate that individual message before you send it, acknowledging those other criteria that Jane also met in that situation. So just that's kind of an important thing to know.
I always use the same term, like we want to get you automation can get you 90% of the way there. That's the right way to think about this. Everything we're doing here through automation, the ideas themselves are not new. Everybody that works in development knows, boy, it'd be really nice if I had time to send a personal heartfelt email to donors every single day and acknowledge them for the cool stuff that they're doing, or say, hey, it's great, I saw that you increased your gift, or whatever that, or have a new donor welcome series when somebody made their first gift. None of that is new. Everyone that works in development understands the value in that. What's changed is that automation allows you to do 95% of that work and serve it up on a platter so that you can actually do it, because none of us have time to do all the stuff that we know that we should be doing. In this case, just think how different your office would run if you had your major gift officers, your development director, your bishop, whoever, getting this email every morning and literally making it as easy as clicking on a link to draft an email to a donor. Like that would be life-changing to a nonprofit. And these are some examples. And Stacy, we can do different stuff, right? So these are the common examples, gifts above a certain amount, first-time donor, Bishop Circle type thing. But really, sky's the limit on the conditions, right?
Anything that's in Razor's Edge, we can do. If it's not in Razor's Edge, we probably can't do it.
That's a big qualification to all this, right? One thing automation can't do is invent something if the data doesn't exist.
One of the things I want to point out quick too, Nick, is just because when Andrew and I talk to a lot of clients about the opportunities, is the LiveMon one. That actually was something that a client came to us and said, hey, we're having an issue retaining donors. Like, we do a good job of getting donors, we have an issue retaining donors. Is there a way that you can help us like proactively reach out to donors before they become a lapsed donor and that, 12 months passes since their last gift. And the LiveMon does that. So we can actually, it's not just thanking donors after they make a gift, but actually prompting donors to make the next gift, right? Hey, you're coming up on your anniversary of your last gift, and click here to renew your support, where it takes them right up to an online donation page so that they get off the naughty list. And you retain that donor, you retain that revenue, those kinds of things. So just kind of something to keep in mind there too. But it really is customizable. And Andrew and I and Stacey and Austin, in a consultative way, we'll kind of give you different ideas or share with you some of how other clients have tackled some of the issues that you very much might be facing, and kind of recommend or suggest ways to utilize automation to aid in those issues that you're having.
Awesome. And just to reiterate exactly what you said, you are in charge. How many emails per day, who they come from, what they say, whether you send them. There's a question about security. Like, you're in charge of all that. Like, what information you want to share in there. We probably wouldn't allow it. No one's ever asked to, but we would not let you put social security numbers or, credit card numbers. Like, none of that is ever going to go in an email. What we're going to do is do what you would do if you had the time, which is draft an email telling somebody, hey, thank you so much for your gift the other day. That was fantastic, right? So that's the extent of the information that's traveling anywhere. But the sky's the limit. In many ways, I know that's holding back a lot of, I've spoken to so many nonprofits that are like, they know they want to use automation. It's just the fact that you can do anything with it that's like paralyzing. So I think what Andy and Stacey and Austin have done a good job at is saying, and what we're trying to do today, here's 6 really good examples. Like, start with one of these, and then your wheels are going to start turning, and you're going to go from there. So let's actually talk about some of the custom stuff that we've done on that. That was a good segue. Unplanned. Custom automations. So again, we're going to dip into our bread and butter consulting work. We do is for all of these very large dioceses across the country. So we're going to share some of the examples of what they're doing. If you're a diocese, it's going to be apples to apples. If you're another religious organization, I still think you're probably going to be nodding your head and saying, yes, I can see how this would work for us. Dioceses of Dallas, Stacey or Austin, who wants to talk about the Daily Digest?
I can talk about this one. So Daily Digest is so brilliant. This is the kind of thing that everybody loved, right? Because before, Kelly would go to Lucia every day and say, hey, can you tell me who the new gifts were over $1,000 yesterday? And she'd be like, I showed you how to get the list in Razor's Edge. Just kidding. Probably would actually go to Razor's Edge and look for this, right? But so yeah, we can just send you this in an email. The email can go to anyone you like. We can add actions to Razor's Edge so that he knows he needs to call these people and say thank you. The links in this email go back to Razor's Edge. So the names go to the donor, the gift information goes to the gift. Somebody security-wise, if somebody doesn't have access to Razor's Edge, this is all they will be able to see, right, is what's in the email. And if they do have access to Razor's Edge, then these links will take them there. Otherwise, it would just send them to a page that says, we don't know who you are. You can't see that stuff.
I like this because I think it solves both sides of it. So as a DBA, you get super annoyed when people constantly say, hey, can you send me a list of XYZ? And you showed them a million times how to get the dang report, but they never do it. So it solves that for you. But also on the other side, which is probably where Andy and I are at, more of like the major gift officer world, like, we also feel guilty asking for it all the time. We're not trying to be jerks. It's just I don't work that way. I always forget where to go in Razor's Edge, and I feel guilty, so I end up not asking for it, even though I know it would make my job easier if I got an email like this. Like, this solves, everybody's happy, right? Just stop forcing people to do something they're never going to do, which is become a database person if they're not a database person, and just serve it up on a platter form, right? Make life easier. That's what automation can do.
One of the things that's helpful in this Daily Digest too, Stacey, she kind of talked about like the people that don't have access, right? So obviously, if you're on the development team, you're going to have access. We work with a lot of organizations, and I know that there are some on this call, a pro-life organization, some of these Catholic charities that have volunteers or have board members that are kind of part of that stewardship process too. So maybe it's a campaign and you've got volunteer fundraisers going out and making their 10 or 20 ask or whatever, or board members asking for sponsorships for the gala, and you need to be able to find a way to let them know, hey, the check from ABC Plumbing came in, or Mr. and Mrs. Smith just signed up for the golf outing, or whatever that might be. This is a way to do that and inform them without giving them the keys to the car in Razor's Edge and having them go in and accidentally manipulate a Razor's Edge record in some way, address, gift, whatever. So just a nice and easy way to be able to push information out to those volunteer board members or fundraisers and things like that.
Okay, let's talk about the cool stuff you're doing next door in Texas. So Galveston, Houston, big, enormous diocese, gift acknowledgments. Austin, is this you?
Yes.
Okay. Gifts come in the door, right? If you attended our webinars before, I use a lot of the same animations here. I'm starting to get self-conscious. I got to come up with something new for gifts. Gifts come in the door. They drop a coin in this slot. And then you can either send them an email or you can send them a thank you letter. Most people do both. let's talk about the letters. So Houston, gifts would come in and they have a large volume of them. Then they would go and they would create all the thank you letters to everybody. Such a large volume, Austin, correct me if I'm wrong, they had 86,000 gifts that came in by the end of the year, right?
Yes, they have what we would call a high volume.
The technical term is high volume. Tell me what they had to do with that. So 86,000 gifts, how would they even go about handling the gift acknowledgement, the thank you letter for that?
So, twice a month, they would pull a list from the database. They would have to review this in multiple ways. So they pull off anonymous, they pull off matching gifts, they pull off gifts directly from parishes, whatever else was in their sort of suppression list, but it would take hours. Like, I don't think that this was a task that the person who was assigned to do this enjoyed very much, right?
And I guarantee it's stuff that the person who, like, the development director, the CFO, they have no idea the amount of stuff that goes into cleaning. They're just like, oh, just go send the letters, right? Click a button that sends the letters out, having no concept of how different all the different gifts are. And like you said, parish gifts, anonymous gift, corporate gifts.
Variables involved, right? Like
Yes.
the double check of addresses and addressee salutations. And, it was just.
Yes. So that was the old way. Okay. What can they do? What have they done through automation? What did you build for them? And how's it working?
So now we can do this two ways, right? So we pull a print file for the mail house for anyone that doesn't have an email address, and that's formatted directly how the print house wants it to be formatted. And then every day an email automation runs, and if someone has a valid email, they get their acknowledgement automatically via email.
Oof. So instead of maybe once a month or at most twice a month of a huge pull and clean up everything else, like if they have an email, it can be daily now.
Yeah, it's going daily. So their turnaround time went from like 2 weeks to a month to acknowledging letters to the next day.
Incredible. And this happens. So before, database person would have to go pull the file, do all the manipulation, create the letters, everything else. Now that is all automated, and that database person just gets an email that says, hey, your letters are ready?
Yeah, they just get an email that has a couple links in it, and they can go review those links if they would like, or send those directly off to the print house, and the emails go out automatically.
That is completely awesome. Think of all the fun stuff that you could do, the more rewarding stuff you could do. If you're spending a ton of time, or your office is on this, your time is too valuable to do that stuff anymore. Your time is too valuable to be just manipulating data for its own sake. Like, get automation to do the boring, grindy work for you, and you can use your time on all the other fun stuff that takes, more brain power, that can do donor cultivation, donor research, all sorts of good stuff. Okay, that was Houston. We'll go fast here. Oklahoma City. Okay, here's the example. Peter, my good friend. I don't know, is Peter on today? I didn't look to see. Peter was in Oklahoma City. He's off in Arlington now. He holds the record for, he had the most, what are these called? Citations?
These and salutations in Razor's Edge, or name formats in Razor's Edge.
Name format, whatever you call it. Anybody that enters the database in Oklahoma City and in a lot of religious organizations, there's lots of ways to address, right? Dear Monsignor, dear Deacon, dear Reverend James, dear Father James, dear Father Jim, dear Father James Kiter. I use as an example because he was at the last webinar that we did. Dear Father Jim. So all of that exists. So when a person comes in, if you're in Oklahoma City or anywhere else, you have to create all those different name formats, right? So Stacy, what did you build for our friend Peter?
Yeah, so the old way is you just click through and you keep clicking 8 rows. So the button now lives in Razor's Edge web view. You click this create addresses and salutations button, and it will go and find out if you have a spouse, what your gender is, what your title is, and then it will add all those things according to the rules. So, and then there's, especially for a lot of our dioceses, if somebody has a clergy title, we usually kick them to somebody else, right? So then it says, this person has a clergy title, you're gonna have to do this one on your own. Because
Yes.
There's so many variations and we don't want to get them wrong, right? But if anybody's standard, right? Mrs. Stacy Cope, Mrs. Cope, right? Just throw them in there. So instead of spending a minute and a half picking out the right options and going through that super long, awful list that you all have worked in Razor's Edge know about, this thing figures out almost all of it for you in about
Incredible.
10 seconds.
I love those examples like that. Just simple automation. It seems simple, but it just takes a lot of the pain away, a lot of the friction away. I like this example from Boston too, because this really shows how much you can customize automation and how it works. So this is just a flow chart. So is this Stacy or Austin?
This one's me.
Okay. So what did we do? How did they handle this to tackle an issue of, do we send English or Spanish? Who's it coming from? Like, what did they build here?
Yeah, so they're doing the heartfelt emails and they have a bunch of senders. They're obviously a big diocese. They have lots of gift officers and coordinators and staff people and lots of languages that they send letters out, right? So if someone received the Spanish letter, we're going to send an email from Carla because she actually speaks Spanish and can respond to them when they write back to her. Everybody else gets a message in English, and if they're assigned to a solicitor, it comes from that solicitor. If they're not assigned to the solicitor, we split them up based on the amount, right? So the lower level gifts come from, or lower amount gifts, the email comes from Arlene, the higher amount ones come from PJ, and even higher ones from that, then that actually come from Gavin. So anybody that hits a certain threshold goes straight to the top. They all kind of get some extra love, and there's always eyes. I mean, the benefit here is that once a gift larger than $10,000 comes in, there's eyes on it, right? Because it happens. You get a gift from a $10,000 gift from somebody that no one has met, right? And you have to talk to those people. So those kinds of things are the kind of thing that slips through the cracks if you're not doing something like this, right? So
I love the flowchart example just because this shows essentially this is what automation is, right? If you can map it out on a flowchart and say, here's what I want to have happen, or have Stacey or Austin or somebody kind of help you give examples, it can be done. Like so in a lot of organizations, it's English or Spanish letters is a gift above a certain amount. You can map it out. We can create the automation that will manage your gift acknowledgments or your heartfelt emails or anything like that. Data health. All right, what are we doing for data health? Let's get out of the diocesan world. Let's move into Catholic charity world. What's going on in Chicago Catholic Charities?
Chicago Catholic Charities has a couple of automations. The first one that I love, we've talked a little bit about this, is the Daily Digest, but I just love this so much, right? So back in the day, Susan, every morning, the first thing she did was pull a list of all the gifts added yesterday above a certain level and sent them out to everybody. I think she might be on this call, right? So that was the first thing she had to do every day, right? So now we're sending that out and we're able to do that in a way that allows her to, right, go on vacation. People are not constantly asking her, hey, it's 9:15, why do I not have that report, right? It's just done. So I love that, saving that little bit of time and headache. So that's awesome. The giving circle attribute one is also very cool. So most of us have some sort of a giving society. If you give above $1,000 or $10,000 or whatever it is, you get special recognition, you get invited to special events. And it's always a little bit of a pain for the people in charge of the database, right? Because at the drop of a hat, someone says, oh yeah, I remembered I wanted to email everybody in the giving societies this afternoon. Can you get me that list? And you'd say, wow, I haven't calculated that in a while. There's soft credits and weird things. It's going to take me a couple hours. No, you can't email them today, right? But with automation, what we do for Catholic Charities and for lots of other organizations is we go in overnight, and anybody that has a new gift, we add up their total and make sure that they have the right attribute or constituent code or whatever it is, however it is you guys like to do this, on the record. So if at any moment when somebody walks into your office and says, we're going to send an email in an hour to everybody who's a member of, the Archbishop Circle, you can do that at a drop of a hat because it's already all the time.
So that's also huge pain for a lot of religious organizations that do like an annual report or something, right? Like, or they send out a booklet of all the donors, like, and that takes 2 weeks to go through and add everything up. Like, yep. Theoretically, you could do that at a drop of a hat. Somebody says, hey, we're going to send out a mailing. You could do it tomorrow and just say, great, I'll pull the list right now because you know that it's up to date, because every time a gift comes in, it automatically creates that giving circle. Awesome. Can it also pull them off? What about, like, can it be like if they haven't given in the last 12 months, does it like take away the bishop circle thing? Oh,
yep.
Wow.
It can also update, right? So like maybe I'm a person who's giving a monthly gift, and at some point my monthly gift cumulative giving gets me in the bronze circle, but then 6 months later my gifts have accumulated. Now I'm in, the silver circle or something like that, right? So it could remove the bronze circle and add the silver circle. So it really is kind of an annual report in real time. The other thing I think that's big on this one, and I'm a stickler for it because again, this is just something I used to do a lot, right? Is when people get into these giving circles, very often you thank them one time of the year. And that's like maybe in November when you do your annual donor recognition. It's like, cool, you're thanking me for something in November that actually happened in March or happened in April. Why did you not thank me then? And really it's because that thing that Stacey just talked about wasn't in the database at that time. The gift was there, but like, how you acknowledge or recognize people in those various circles, that data generally gets pulled one time when you're creating the invitations to that donor recognition event, right? So thank them when it happens, and then still thank them again, obviously, when the donor recognition event, takes place as well. But this is something that really does elevate that stewardship game because you're thanking people in real time for those kind of milestones as opposed to just in one mass chunk with everybody else.
Well said. What a time to be alive. All these automations making life so simple. Let's stick with Catholic Charities. And this is our friend Ken, who I know is on the call. I saw him a second ago. So this was one of the first big ones that we did, like a complex reporting thing, Stacy. Is that right?
It is.
So what did we do for Ken and Mark and the team there?
So they collect gifts on behalf of their parish schools as part of a foundation project. I don't remember all the exact words of all of what it's called, but they receive gifts at the diocese, and then they wanted to send out these gifts to the individual schools and parishes that were Angel Scholarship. Thank you, Ken. A report, right? A list of all the gifts and the donors out to the schools, right? Because the schools and the parishes know who those donors are, right? They're members of their parish, so they need to know who these people are. So Mark in Cleveland used to spend literal days on this, right? He would pull 1 million reports in Razor's Edge. He would then email out the reports one at a time to everyone. Obviously, that takes forever when you have hundreds of schools and funds that you're dealing with here. So what they have now is a process that Ken goes in once a month and presses a button, and it goes and finds all the gifts in Razor's Edge. It makes a huge list of them. It splits them up by fund, right? So it goes to, St. Joseph's here and Our Lady of Good Counsel here, and everybody else, right, gets a list. And then we have the email address that is supposed to receive the report stored on the fund record in Razor's Edge. And so then the automation knows, based on the fund of the gift, who is supposed to get which list, and it emails all of them out. So
it not only, Stacy, so what I'm hearing correctly, it takes a giant messy process and parses out the individual reports, but then it also sends them out as well. Super cool. Okay.
It's cool.
Stacy, do you want more automations like that, or is that a nightmare scenario for you?
It's a little bit nerve-wracking. Ken and Katie's on the call too, and Mark will remember how scary it is, right, to send out all these reports automatically. But no, honestly, it's so useful, and we've gotten so used to doing stuff like this that I don't even really get nervous about it.
Automation.
So helpful.
All right. Another report scenario, Stacy, I'll stick with you. So Diocese of Fort Worth, another religious organization we work with. Every diocese on the call is going to be nodding their head at this. What are they doing with their reporting, and why is it a pain, and what did they solve?
So there's a big parish report everybody does with their annual appeal that shows how much each parish has raised toward the appeal, right? And it's annoying. It's a big problem. You're consolidating a lot of information, right? So what we've done for the Diocese of Fort Worth is taken a couple of different reports that she used to pull together, and then spent, 1 million hours in Excel manipulating things, and kind of basically sent it back, just taken the data directly from Razor's Edge and added it all up in the right places and sent it back kind of in the format, or close to the format that is what they're going to be sending out to their parishes.
So automation can also, if you have a big bear of a report to send out, automation through Sky API, you can pull it in cleaner ways. So this is it the right way to say it? Like, automation can let you get outside of the canned report, right? If you're a diocese, there's no simple, this is the button to create the parish by parish progress towards goal report. That doesn't exist. Right. But it's something that 180 dioceses need. Automation can let you create that.
Yep. And I mean, you are limited in Razor's Edge in how you can get the data out and what order it comes out in and how it looks. And so everyone has a little bit different way of doing this. And everyone has a little bit different way of storing the data in Razor's Edge to begin with. So there's just always a lot of kind of manual work to get your report done. So automation can take some of those headaches away and combine some of the things that come from different spots to make it a little bit easier.
Awesome. All right. Let's talk a little bit about stuff that we have coming up here, and then we're going to get to some of the questions. Coming soon, what are we looking at here, and what's the big new thing that people are going to love?
So Razor's Edge has released, I think everyone should be able to see these now. Standard reports now live in Razor's Edge NXT Web View. They're great. They've made a lot of improvements over the way reports run in database view. So if you haven't had a chance to check it out, please go check it out. But there are API endpoints related to these kinds of reports. So coming up, we assume soon will be the ability to maybe email this gift detail and summary report out, or have this emailed to you, or have it emailed as a CSV or saved as a CSV to your SharePoint somewhere for a different process to pick up for some integration or something. So lots of possibilities about to be opened up with that. We're excited about it.
So this is something we've been waiting on them to release the endpoints for the standard report. They finally exist now, so we can start doing all the fun stuff that we like. And like Andy shared as an example, we can take a report that you used to have to log into Razor's Edge to access everything else, and we can automatically send it through email so that person never has to go into Razor's Edge.
Yep.
Love it.